Adventures of Chocolate and Oswalt and Friends by Dr. Nyman for the students and staff of the Key to Learning, April 2024, Volume 11 of Critter Chronicles. Once upon a time, two critter friends named Oswalt and Chocolate left the Key to Learning on an extended field trip with their trusted babysitters, Dr. Nyman and Mr. Wen. This time, Dr. Nyman insisted on taking 11 critters in honor of Volume 11 and the last story for Season 1. In attendance was Captain America, known as Hab's Cap, Teddy, the youngest critter friend, Aurora, who was happy to return to the Chronicles, Snowflake, a tiny dolphin who was released by SeaWorld to a good home, Grizzy, a funny hound dog, the twin sloths, Love and Star, but do not let their size fool you. They are as old as their names. Pelican, who after winning a fishing tournament recently received a nickname of Glider, and a mischievous black cat named Midnight. We were headed to Mayaka River State Park, our babysitter said, when Love and Star repeated, Mayaka? It's not my yaka, it's your yaka. And the others giggled. Right off the start, we suspected that Midnight's mischievousness would yield a handful of fun and oftentimes scary adventures. Well, that was quick. As soon as we arrived to our campsite at Mayaka State Park, Midnight was so curious to see where we were, he peeked his head out of the multi-purpose handy-dandy cinch parachute thingamabob carrier. At which point, we heard the twins repeat, Mayaka? It's not my yaka, it's your yaka. We all tried to pull Midnight back in before we get in trouble and wondered, how many lives do you think Midnight has? We had read that this state park has an 80-foot tower with a canopy bridge that connects both towers and was built by a group of volunteers. After we all managed not to get in trouble and our babysitter set everything up, we quickly headed out to find the playground. We found swings, but ironically no playground. We had to share the swings, and we heard our babysitter say, sharing is caring, so we giggled as we swung. After the swinging, Pelican Glider insisted to go fishing. All the others were mesmerized with the large family who were dancing to Spanish tunes, as it appeared they were celebrating someone's birthday. As our babysitters asked us to quickly head into our multi-purpose, handy-dandy, cinch parachute thingamabob carrier, while they went to go get Pelican Glider, Claudia accidentally grabbed the multi-purpose, handy-dandy, cinch parachute thingamabob carrier and sped off in her 2023 cyan-colored 3-speed bicycle and had already taken several laps when luckily Dr. Nyman, who speaks Spanish, flagged her down and exchanged bags. Now, what are the chances of someone else having a multi-purpose, handy-dandy cinch parachute thingamabob carrier? Wouldn't you know it, it appeared that Midnight may only have 8 lives left. As we were crossing the riverbank that was filled with alligators, we all posed so nicely on the bridge, but Midnight thought it would be a good idea to pose in the hole that was in the bridge that allowed you to see down. Cats, waters, and alligator are never a good mix. Luckily, his 10 new friends thought quickly and tossed a rope over to Midnight as they positioned themselves in a line, with Grizzy all the way in the back, and they pulled Midnight to safety. Pelican Glider, who had not at all been pleased, had to put his fishing rod down, helped, and was happy to do so at the end. We arrived to the trail we would be walking down towards the canopy bridge. We posed for our usual photos and began our hike. That is until Midnight got himself trapped on a very tall tree, and his friends had to wait patiently until his rescue again. This is when we heard the twins repeat, my yaka? It's not my yaka, it's your yaka. Cab's Cap had a plan, and we simply watched in awe as Midnight was back on solid ground. Oswalt, who had been keeping track of Midnight's lives, proudly counted out loud and said, "That is 7 lives left for Midnight." All the critters started to mumble amongst themselves, and some comments were directed to Midnight himself. They continued on their hike when they came across a coin-operated viewing telescope, and Midnight was the first to look out. We again patiently waited. We trust we will have our turn, especially since we have nice babysitters. We finally arrived at the Canopy Bridge, and we were excited to climb the 80-foot tower and look out. We thought about the beautiful masterpiece of God's creations we would see. But this is when we had another rescue situation with only half the crew and a blue rope. So picture this. We were merrily climbing when Midnight was not using the stairs provided, as he thought it would be a good idea to use the outer planks instead. This is when he slips and clearly uses another one of his lives, leaving 6 lives left, and falls on all 4, as cats seem to do. But now he was too skittish on the climb and insisted we use the blue rope again. His abled friends bravely dared the ledge of the stairs and tossed him the blue rope and brought him to the first level. They climbed quietly the rest of the way. Midnight was even content to use the stairs like all his other friends. The smaller abled friends remained safely on the first few steps until the entire group was together again and the climb continued. After the exhausting and scary climb, we were all excitedly back on solid ground and giggling about how quiet it was on the climb. This is when we saw Midnight run ahead and managed to get himself stuck under a heavy log when Oswalt counted out loud again, "And that's his 6th life." Chocolate, on the other hand, was quickly doing another mathematical calculation in his head. He exclaimed, "We need another 80 pounds to lift this log and rescue Midnight." When Teddy exclaimed, "Where's Grizzy?" the twins stopped saying the Mayaka skit and noticed that Teddy is smart, as he knew 80 pounds would mean Grizzy. Grizzy was running after the group and yelling, "Not funny, guys, don't leave me behind." Midnight was rescued and Grizzy caught up to the group and just in time to help lift the heavy log. Chocolate was still mathing in his head and was picturing a calendar and thought, "Today marks the 70th day since we sent the letter. The instructions had been followed, enough postage was adhered, and the small print said we would hear back by exactly day 70. So Chocolate wanted to rush back to the campsite before the reply arrives and thought to himself, only if Midnight would stop at 5 lives. On the way back, we saw 2 deer, a woodpecker, a turkey, many alligators, and the Mayaka River. Midnight continued making unsafe choices and testing just how many lives do cats really have. Upon our arrival back at the campsite, it appeared that the ranger in training came around with a personal message for Chocolate and Oswalt. The 2 got so excited, they insisted their babysitters take them to see the head ranger for a special delivery. The babysitters loaded Chocolate and Oswalt and took them to the head ranger station, where they met Ranger Ann, who, after some inspections of the critters, handed them a letter that was addressed to them. The letter was safely handed over on exactly day 70, just like the instructions said would happen. They could not wait to gather the group and read what it said. This is when Midnight managed to get himself stuck between the tailgate and the closure of Nova Fett, the truck, and we all had to pitch in and pray it apart. This delayed the reading of the letter, and this time Aurora says, is this life number 5 just like that? Oh, you want to know what the letter says. To Chocolate and Oswalt from Ducky's headquarters. Dear Chocolate and Oswalt, we have received your letter. We are excited to tell you that your request has been read by Mr. Ducky himself. He asked us to inform you that he will take it from here. We are certain your babysitters will be the perfect match for their adventures. Oh, by the way, have a great summer, Ducky's headquarters. Well, we were right around the campsite when we all took Bailey for a walk after dinner. Midnight seemed to get himself in the toughest situations. He managed to fall into a hole that was 1,973 millimeters deep. It took all of us to get him out, Oswald proudly announced, and with that, he only has 3 lives left. Midnight all of a sudden decided to follow directions and walk on the arrow towards who knows where, but failed to notice it was a street and a car was coming. This is when Cab's Cap stood in front of the vehicle and stopped it, while all the others yelled at Midnight to watch out. Okay, Oswald yells. Teddy, how much is 3 take away 1? Teddy proudly replies, 2, that is 2, Oswald. We had our traditional magical fire along with the string of fairy lights, but we could not find Midnight anywhere. Our critter crew thought about counting her lost whereabouts as life number 2, but they all certainly hoped they would find him before departing back home. The next morning, we all prepped to head back home, but we were sad to see that Midnight had been missing all night. Luckily, Head Ranger Anne found Midnight roaming the campground. She quickly realized he must be with the Critter Chronicle crew and knew exactly who to call. As our babysitters were conducting their final walk around, Pam, the ranger in training, again insisted our babysitters go to the head ranger station for a special delivery. This is when Head Ranger Anne, with an angry face, handed Midnight over to our babysitters, who thanked her. Midnight jumped in the truck and waved goodbye to Mayaka State Park. We heard the twins say, "It's not your Yaka, it's my Yaka." We then heard our babysitters exclaim, "We did not lose any critters. I say that was a successful season 1. Have a great summer, friends. Stay tuned for season 2. The end.